All right. If I were to ask you, what is the determining factor in financial success? What would you say? Take a second, really think about it. What is the one thing that everybody should know that is the determining factor in success? Well, if you guessed financial literacy and personal finance, then you would be correct. Now, how are we so bold to be able to say that financial literacy and personal finance is the determining factor in financial success? Well, first, let's start by defining what financial literacy is. If we break the phrase financial literacy into its two root words, financial meaning your recognition of assets, money coming in, money going out, and what you need right now in order to make sure that everything that you need to pay is adequately paid for and managed, right? Literacy is consequentially your ability to be able to read in a specific core set of languages, understand what those languages mean, and then apply that the complex systems in that literacy setting to your life, right? So if we smush these two phrases together, financial literacy is your ability to be able to comprehend complex situations and understand the context of your money coming in, money going out, and the assets that you have at your disposal, and be able to fit that into the context of what you need in order to live and thrive in day-to-day life, right? So if we take a look at what that means in practice, this means that you're able to understand what you need right now in order to be comfortable. It means you understand what your goals are. It means that you understand what you will need in order to accomplish those goals in the next 5 to 10 years. It also means that you have an adequate understanding of your value sets. It means that you know that, oh, this is what I care about. And so this is what I need to be able to finance that future, right? Let's say, for example, you're an avid hiker. You might not necessarily need all the money in the world to be able to stay financially independent and financially comfortable. You might not need to be a multimillionaire if all you ever need is an adequate set of hiking gear, right? And lastly, financial literacy is your ability to understand your relationship to debt, right? A lot of us, especially in North America, have a very poor relationship to the debt that we take on, assuming that it'll eventually be paid sometime. In a sense, we effectively sacrifice our future self for the product that we want today, right? And this overall contributes to a poor understanding of what financial literacy is in the United States, right? So a couple things financial literacy is not, right? There is a little bit of a difference between complete financial success and your ability to be a financially literate person, right? If you think of a traditionally financially successful person, you might think of a Wall Street banker, somebody who has made buckets of money, never has to think about what they pay for, goes on dozens of trips to Cabo every single year, has $10,000 dinners, right? All the luxurious things that they have at their disposal 24/7. This isn't necessarily always going to be the picture perfect case of a person who is financially literate. A financially literate person knows exactly what they need today and is able to hold themselves back from making ridiculous purchases if they don't need to make them, right? Your ability to understand your context and have an honest assessment of your current standing financially ultimately helps you to pave a way forward so that you don't end up overspending today and undervaluing your future needs, right? So let's do a brief little financial literacy exercise. If you had a magic genie pop up today and say, I'm going to give you $1,000 now, or I'll give you $5 a day for the rest of your life, most of us would be able to take a look at that and go, I'd be pretty dang close to hitting $1,000 after almost a year, right? And if we even expand that calculation a little bit further, after 1 year, we're making way more than we would after just $1,000, right? And then if we compound that over the course of 20 years, we're making 36 times what our initial investment would have been of that startup $1,000 easy cash. It's this principle of understanding that a little bit saved today is worth more than a lot earned tomorrow that helps translate into future success, right? But unfortunately, not a lot of us know that in the United States. The average American wouldn't be able to survive a $400 emergency without going into debt. That's a pretty rough space to be in, especially considering that your average credit card debt is going to compound at somewhere between 15 to 20% per month, right? And so if we reverse this effect, that 20% of $5 a day, we can actually see people losing over $36,000 over 20 years just by not being able to understand this basic financial literacy principle. Just a couple of studies to further elucidate some of the issues that we're experiencing in the United States with financial difficulties is with millennials, only about 24% of them were able to demonstrate financial basic literacy, according to the most recent data. Furthermore, right in the 20 to 25-year-old demographic, 22% of college students were more likely to continue their studies if they took a financial literacy course. This shows that the ideas and principles of financial literacy, when taught, end up teaching students that they can earn more over a significant period of time if they project their energy towards more successful life habits. And so, just to put a little bit more context into the amount that people lose every single year because of financial illiteracy, the average American adult is losing $1,634 a year, pretty similar to that $5 a day figure. To further elucidate on some of the issues that we're seeing with financial literacy in the United States, I'm going to pass it over to Taylor real quick.
Perfect. Thank you, Preston. Now I'd like to expand a little bit more on the base that Preston set for us on what is financial literacy and how financial literacy and education affects the poverty line. And as you know, in the United States and in every state and all over the world, poverty is a big issue. And the only way we get out of poverty is by education, and especially in financial literacy. As you can see on the chart, there's different degrees and different levels of education here. And as we increase our education, our general education, but more importantly, our financial literacy education, that percentage keeps dropping down about 4 or 5% each time we increase our level of education. That's a big percent. If you think about 5% of the whole United States of America, that's a lot of people that are leaving that poverty line by gaining this education and by understanding what financial literacy is. And this education, it helps us make effective money management choices. And with debt and with credit cards, like Preston was talking about, it helps us leave this poverty. It helps us advance and use money to our advantage and make our money work to make us more money and not to be slaves to that money. And now moving on to the next slide, I'd like to talk a little bit more about how financial literacy empowers our communities. And here in the United States, it helps us with food security, and also helps our standard of health. And not only here in the United States, like I mentioned, but helps all over the world. It also helps us with our workforce, educate and create and produce a stronger workforce. And then this translates into lower crime rates, fewer foreclosures in the neighborhood, less stress in each of our lives, and happy individuals and families, and financially capable communities. Everyone benefits in these. So as you can see on the screen, these are benefits that are coming from developing countries here in the United States as well as all over the world. And moving on to the next slide, we'd also like to talk about a few other ones. These ones are very simple, but these ones are just stopping the spread of communicable diseases, and also with the whole gender thing that's going on, helping gender equality, gender equity, whatever you want to call it. So another big thing is, like we mentioned, financial literacy helps us make better money management choices and handle our debt a lot better. And this is a very important thing, talking about the pandemic, and especially now, is when the pandemic hit, lots of people lost their jobs and were only left with the money they had saved. And like Preston was saying, the average American only has about $400 more or less before they have to go into debt. And with the pandemic lasting a long time, you're not gonna survive very long trying to provide for a family or provide for yourself like that. So it's our responsibility to be able to teach ourselves and to teach the younger ones to make a difference here, to teach our kids and our kids' kids to make financially literate choices, to teach them to stay out of debt, to make good money choices, and to do all of that. And in that, that helps us benefit not only ourselves, but benefit the entire community, benefit the healthcare system, benefit the retirement system, benefit all of those different things that are essential to community. And to talk a little bit more about this generational education, we're going to turn the time over to Dylan.
Thank you, Taylor. So, like you mentioned, I am going to draw connections from generational poverty and how that is stemmed from financial illiteracy. So, in the US, there are currently not a whole lot of financial literacy courses, personal finances, classes along that line. So, without the youth being taught that, children will tend to mirror their parents' financial habits. That can be problematic when we're looking at inner city youth, where parents themselves do not have a whole lot of money because they might not have the best financial habits themselves. So, without the inner city youth not having anyone to follow financially, that can be that can stem excuse me, that can lead to generational poverty and things along that line. And another thing that should be mentioned is that there's really no outlet for these kids to go on. There's not a whole lot of extracurricular financial courses, personal finances, and courses along that line. So it's really difficult for kids who are even interested in building up this knowledge for themselves. It's really hard for them to find an outlet to do that. And on my next slide, I'm going to be talking about what schools are teaching instead, because I found it quite interesting when researching for this topic that high schools are strangely focused on STEM courses, classes like science, technology, and mathematics. I found that really interesting because a very small percentage of students will end up going into those courses. Yes, they're good basic information for a bunch of higher level classes, but at the end of the day, students will be needing financial literacy and their personal finances much more, because 100% of students could benefit from learning those classes, because regardless of your job, regardless of your current situation, knowing how to uh, be literate in finance, it could be extremely beneficial. And gonna branch off on that topic. I'm gonna hand it over to Mandy.
This issue and offer skill-based learning through vocational education. Vocational education gives students an opportunity to learn hands-on skills that may be useful to them after high school. These programs are usually offered to students in their junior year of high school, which allows them to graduate with 2 years of knowledge and skill that they can later use in the work field. Finance and business courses are a few of the many programs that are offered. This is helpful for students who may not have the finances to attend college and allows them to get their foot in the door with alternative career paths after graduation. Although these programs are helpful for students, it still doesn't fix the lack of financial literacy taught within the general education system. On my next slide, it'll show that according to the Council of Economic Education, less than 20% of teachers feel as though they are competent enough to teach financial literacy and personal finance concepts to students. This is a result from the absence of financial literacy in their own classroom when they were in grade school. The cycle will continue until schools decide to make a change. Many schools believe that financial literacy should be taught to children at home or in college. Studies show that 69% of parents have reluctance when talking to their kids about money. Even if financial literacy skills are taught at home, it still doesn't give each individual student a fair chance at being financially educated. Students should be taught financial literacy from elementary school until graduation. This would be beneficial for every student after graduation and sets them up for success later in life. On my next slide, it'll show that as of this year, 25 states have introduced personal finance into their curriculum, and 10 states, it is now required of students to take a personal finance course before graduation. These schools are working with Next Gen Personal Finance to incorporate financial literacy into the school's curriculum. This has been a huge step towards financial success for students and will hopefully encourage other schools to make the change. With this program, students are taught how to manage money and what steps are needed in order to make smart financial decisions. By following these teachings, students will be able to reach their financial goals and find financial stability within their lives. This will ultimately lead them to less debt, better health, and a happier life. Students will be equipped with the knowledge to navigate everyday life so they can lead a financially independent and productive life. Being taught financial literacy in school is crucial to a child's success. And with the help of teachers, principals, and other corporations, we believe it's possible to make financial literacy a priority within the school system.